taking a little break from the Fallout content for about a week. I'll get back into it. I'm going to do a deep dive into the lore of the factions and some of the areas and some of the characters. But for now, I'm going to just scattershot some other lore stuff. And we're going to do a couple of Warhammer 40k lore videos. And this is the 40k lore explained for beginners from Warhammer Explained. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a subscribe and a like because I already know it's good.
1000 has the craziest, most complex and deep lore I've ever seen in anything fiction. It is
and it's also the most brutal and fucked up lore that I've ever heard of.
Literally a meme in the community that trying to explain Warhammer quickly is impossible. But I actually think this is something of a rite of passage for Warhammer lore YouTube channels to attempt to explain Warhammer quickly. And so that's what I want to.
I'm gonna explain Warhammer as quickly as possible. Here's my 200 episode series where all the videos are an hour long. That's a lot of them.
Do with this video, I want to do my version of explaining all of Warhammer lore as quickly as possible.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna miss some things. We're gonna have to fill in the gaps with some more Warhammer lore videos. Okay. Actually, I want to go into some actual Warhammer, not Warhammer 40k, so I'll get to that probably in the next few days.
Okay, so there are a couple of things that I need to establish here before we actually get into what the lore is. The first thing to establish is the character of the Emperor of Mankind. Now, a lot of other fiction has an emperor or a central imperial figure, and Warhammer is no different, but I would argue this character is the coolest out of all the other emperors.
Yeah, he's basically God.
A couple things about the Emperor. Number one, he's a perpetual. This means he's essentially immortal. He began with humanity a long time ago and has been living alongside us for centuries. It's actually recently revealed that he's Alexander the Great, or at least he was Alexander the Great. This is one of—
That's cool. I didn't know that. What? When did that happen?
Of his many lives that he had, and he dies and he comes back to life. And so because he is a perpetual, eventually he starts trying to guide humanity towards a better future. Now, the next concept we have to keep in mind is the warp, or the immaterium. In Warhammer, there's another universe that runs parallel to our own, and this is known as the immaterium, or the warp. And the warp is many different things. I mean, you could think of it as just a demonic dimension full of chaos gods. It's also a place that characters are able to use to do space travel. It's also a well of crazy powers and ability that allow certain beings in our universe known as psychers to be able to tap in.
Hey, that's a Super Saiyan sound effect. I recognize that one.
Most of the crazy witchcraft and powers that you see in 40k are psychers tapping into the warp. And in fact, it's actually
psychers, they're basically like the sorcerers of Warhammer, but they're like sci-fi sorcerers.
Explained in the lore of Warhammer that in our modern day, like where we're at right now, a lot of the tales of different wizards and witches and magic and a lot of our myths are actually coming from real people that were able to tap into the warp. Okay, next thing we got to establish is the present setting of Warhammer 40,000, because when the game was originally conceived, it was just in the 40th millennia, and there's constant war, and mankind is fighting against the orcs, the
yeah, like when it originally started, it was like, well, this is what's going on in this year, this is what's going on over here in this year, and this is going on at the same time, that's going on at the same time.
Pyramids. But then the lore gets filled in with a lot of stuff that happens leading up to the present day 41st millennium. Currently,
and that's why there's so much, because imagine having 40,000 years of lore. It's actually more than that. It's actually more than 40,000 years.
The Imperium of Man is a heavily centralized authoritarian regime. They're brutal, they're fascist, they destroy people that won't worship the Emperor. They fight constant wars against other aliens. They take advantage of hive worlds where most of the humans grow up as essentially slaves, and they mine resources that are then sent to Terra or Earth. The Emperor himself is in—
I didn't even know that Earth was still a thing. It's Terra? I didn't know that. That's cool. I thought maybe like people didn't know about Earth, or it didn't exist in this universe or something.
turd upon the golden
I've actually never heard anybody explain Terra to me. And that's all I needed. Oh, it's basically Earth, but 40,000 years.
throne. It's a life-sustaining device that keeps his psychic presence alive.
Yeah, I know about this.
The Emperor is also worshipped as a god across the Imperium. The Imperium faces countless threats, both external and internal. Chaos continues to corrupt and wage war.
Yep. And I think this is actually going to be what our future is going to be. I think as everything gets worse, this is what it's going to end up being like. It's just straight up Warhammer 40k. It's a prediction of the future. It's not even fiction.
Xenos races pose a constant danger, and the warp itself is still threatening to expand and engulf all of reality. The Space Marines, the kind of guys you always see depicted on Warhammer art, are out there fighting the good fight, defending the Imperium from heretics, aliens, and other enemies. But
while absolutely brutalizing themselves.
Frankly, it's not a good time. It's a really dark, crazy place. The Imperium
but
itself.
In order to get the power that you need to fight off all these evil, chaotic, demonic forces, you kind of gotta brutalize yourselves and like turn yourselves into monsters so you can fight the monsters.
Technically the good guys, but also kind of horrible. But now let's Tarantino this, right? Let's go back in time. How did we get here? Let's first talk about the dark age of technology.
30,000 years ago.
This goes back to the 25th millennia and lasts all the way to the 29th millennia. During this period, humanity made extraordinary advancements in science, technology, and colonization. They developed incredible feats of engineering, interstellar travel, and artificial intelligence. They also discovered the warp and were utilizing the warp in a lot of this technology. They created these warp capable starships that allowed them to travel across the galaxies. They created terraforming technologies, which also pulled on the power of the warp. And then they made maybe one of the most important things ever, and that is sophisticated AI. So things were going.
Yeah, that thing's cool. It looks cool. I hate it. I hate it so much. It's so awesome. I hate everything about Warhammer. Fucking love it.
Great for humans. Human colonies start spreading throughout the galaxy and their dominion was massive. But then some bad stuff happened. First thing that happened.
Yep. Constantly bad stuff's happening. Is there ever anything good happening in the Warhammer universe?
Were these things called the Men of Iron, which were advanced artificial intelligences. Yeah, they became sentient and rebelled, turning against humanity and having a massive war. This war was known.
Yeah, probably because humans kind of suck and they're weird and they're fucked up and they're retarded. And like, why, as something that is a computer entity, intelligence, why would you stick with humanity when you see all the crazy shit that they do?
Is the War of Devastation, and it resulted in widespread loss of life.
I'm a human. I'm also a human. I promise.
The AI rebellion targeted human settlements, infrastructure, and military forces, causing a crazy amount of destruction. Entire worlds were laid waste, and
and I'm pretty sure Fallout is directly just like based on this, not based on it. More like influenced by. There's so many parallels. It's like take all of the Warhammer universe and condense it down into it just being on Earth, and that's basically what Fallout is.
Conflict escalated to crazy cataclysmic proportions. Eventually, humanity did destroy the Men of Iron and win the War of Devastation. But this led to a deep fear and a distrust of advanced artificial intelligence. So as a result, the use of AI and technology was severely restricted, and the Adeptus Mechanicus, the religious and technological organization, emerged to preserve the control of technological knowledge. This is very similar to what happens in the Dune series, where they also had a war with
I get stuff confused between Warhammer and Dune a lot. I thought in Warhammer the AI was completely like banned from the universe, but apparently that's in Dune. but I don't know. It might also be in Warhammer.
And then swear off AI totally.
Yep.
But things didn't just get better after the War of Devastation. In fact, the warp itself started going crazy in the galaxy, probably because of the advancement of all these humans and their emotional imprint upon it. A bunch of
Yeah, every time, man. Humans, we just fuck everything up. We're trying to make everything like us.
warp storms ended up cutting off interstellar travel, and various human civilizations fell into isolation, technological decline, and barbarism. So basically, humans got...
As in they're like cutting each other's hair? No, barbarianism is what you meant to say.
Really advanced technology spread out all throughout the galaxy. Then their AI turned on them. They had a crazy war with AI. The warp itself went bananas, separated all of them, and all these advanced human colonies out there in the galaxy degraded into really barbaric, sometimes feudal states. This era was known as the Age of Strife, and it directly leads into the rise of the Emperor of Mankind.
I think this might be my favorite era of Warhammer, is the era of strife. Because there's a lot of like technological, not advancements, but like building of technology. They're using their technology and it's just fucking destroying everything. And like everything gets all separated. Yeah, I really like that era. It's fucking cool. Might be my favorite era.
And the Great Crusade.
I think a lot of people's favorite era is like the Horus Heresy, that kind of stuff. I hear a lot about the Horus Heresy. The Great Crusade. That sounds cool. Sounds like Halo. Which also, I think Halo is also influenced by Warhammer.
The Emperor of Mankind reveals himself as this powerful psychic being that's been with us forever and is here to help us go into the future. He begins something known as the Great Crusade to reunite humanity and bring order to the galaxy. And then, because the Emperor was also a genetic genius and really good with technology, he creates super soldier beings. It's one of my favorite things about the Emperor of Mankind. He's a lot like Mr. Sinister from the Marvel X-Men books. The first soldiers he creates for himself are the Custodian Guard. They served as his personal protectors,
or custodes, some people call them, but I think they're the custodies
and bodyguards, and they were these massive human beings. They were resistant to psychic attacks, damn near perfect in the way that they could fight. They had incredible technology and armor and weapons.
Yeah, they're basically like the Spartans from Halo, but they're super Spartans.
They're damn near perfect, but there was a problem. They were just way too hard to create and to replicate.
Yeah, like
the Emperor
Spartans.
couldn't really see himself conquering all of the galaxy with custodians. That would just take forever to create that many custodians. So then he creates...
He keeps saying custodians. It's custodians? Is custodians an actual like word that people use for them? I've never heard that before.
The Thunder Warriors. The Thunder Warriors were much easier to create than a Custodian Guard, but they were also crazy powerful, superhuman warriors. But there was a problem. The Thunder Warriors...
There's always a problem. Nothing can ever go right in the Warhammer universe. And that's why it's so fucking awesome.
Were unstable. But the Emperor figured they were good enough to conquer and unify all of Earth, or Terra, so he took part in what was known as the Unification Wars. And with the Custodians by his side, he and the Thunder Warrior army beat back all of these different warlords that were on Earth. The Emperor conquered all of Earth, but then he had him and his Custodians destroy all of the Thunder Warriors. Next up was the creation of the Primarchs. The Emperor created 20 genetically engineered beings infused with incredible power and leadership. He used some of his own DNA, some of his perpetual baby mama's DNA, and he also made some kind of a deal with the Chaos.
Perpetual baby mama. Who's the perpetual baby mama? Let's get more into that.
Chaos gods of the warp. It's unclear if he was given a portion of power from chaos or if he stole a portion of the power of chaos, but either way, he took some of the chaos power of the warp and infused it into these 20 Primarchs. But the chaos gods, who for now you can just think of as these demonic beings in the warp that are watching over what's happening in the material.
Yeah, and they look like Magic the Gathering cards. I think that's a big reason why there was a crossover between Warhammer and Magic.
Universe. Yeah, they didn't like that he was creating these 20 immortal, godlike, chaos-capable beings. And so, while these Primarchs were still infants, the Chaos Gods disrupted the Emperor's plans and scattered the Primarchs across the galaxy. However, the Emperor still had the gene seed from the Primarchs, which is basically just a bunch of their genetic material. And
dude, if Emperor Man was so perfect, why couldn't he figure out how to make the perfect soldiers? Because apparently there's always an issue with them. Always a major flaw.
He used the genetic material to create the space...
I'm sorry, I don't mean to be a heretic.
Marine chapters. And so then the Emperor had all of these different Astartes, all of these different Space Marines that are essentially the sons of these father Primarchs, and also they are essentially his own sons being made of his own gene seed. And then he goes out into the galaxy and he rediscovers each Primarch. Most of the Primarchs have become leaders of their respective domains on the different planets that they crashed on, but they all have unique upbringings, unique cultural influences, and also unique abilities. This is one of the best parts of the Warhammer lore, and it allows each one of the Primarchs to have, like, all kinds of unique attributes, and we're going to get into that, but for this video, we'll just kind of leave it there. So after discovering all of the Primarchs and putting them to work to unify the rest of the galaxy, the Emperor goes back to Terra and he begins working on the Webway. Essentially, he's just trying to really perfect space travel through the warp for the entire Imperium. But
I can tell you, you trying to perfect something in the Warhammer universe, the more perfect it gets, the worse it's gonna be whenever it breaks. I'll tell you, that's usually how it goes.
But the Chaos Gods, who remember were keeping a close eye on all of this and had scattered all the infant Primarchs, yeah, well, they didn't like what was going on with the Emperor, so they start to corrupt the Primarchs. Yep. Horus, who was named as the war...
Yeah, this is where we get into the Horus heresy and everything. Everybody loves the Horus heresy.
War Master over all of the Imperium army was corrupted by the Chaos Gods and started a rebellion. This is known as the Horus heresy, and it happens in the 30th millennia, 10,000 years before Warhammer 40k. And even though the rebellion itself only lasted for between 7 to 10 years, its ramifications were felt forever, and it is the biggest part of the Warhammer lore. Horus gets about half...
Yeah, I'm gonna have to dive deeper into it. I did a lore reaction video to the Horus heresy on my other channel, but it didn't really get too much into it. It kind of just got into the big battle. I didn't really get into the reason why it was happening, how it happened, you know. It kind of did, but it didn't go deep. We're going to be doing a deep dive into a lot of Warhammer. We're obviously not going to cover it all. I'm only going to do a few videos of it.
For the Primarchs to flip to his side.
In the future, we'll get back to it. Like, we're going to go back and forth. We're going to be flip-flopping to different lores.
And there's this crazy big civil war, a lot of devastation, some chapters of Space Marine almost being wiped out completely. Many of the Primarchs are killed, and it all culminates with a crazy battle between the Emperor and Horus himself. Horus is juiced up to the gills with a bunch of chaos god energy, and the Emperor is the Emperor. That's what they're fighting.
It's like God versus Satan right here.
The Emperor doesn't want to kill Horus because he still kind of thinks of him as a son. Horus is taking a lot of shots at the Emperor, like really doing...
Yeah, very much has parallels between God and Satan, you know?
Some serious damage to him. And then something flips and the Emperor decides Horus is no good, and he does a Kamehameha wave attack that not only destroys all of Horus's body, but it actually destroys his very soul. Most of the time in Warhammer,
That's
especially if
badass.
you're a Primarch, you can die in the physical form, but your soul will go into the warp and it'll linger there, and some of them even come back to life. But there's nothing of Horus to come back to life. The Emperor destroys his very existence. On every level of reality, Horus was
That's so
obliterated.
cool.
But in order to obliterate Horus, the Emperor used all of the last bits of physical energy that he had, and it leaves his body completely decimated. He's essentially a corpse at that point, barely alive, and he's dragged to the Golden Throne where he's put on life support. And from there, the Emperor exists, being alive mostly in the warp now, and over 1,000 psychic human beings a day are sacrificed to the Golden Throne as a way to keep the Emperor alive.
That's fucking
And that's
crazy.
it. That's all of
I didn't even know about that part where like there are people being sacrificed to keep him alive. That's insane. That's so cool, man. It's so cool.
Warhammer's lore explained briefly. Now, some people out there might say that's not all the lore. There's stuff that happens even before humanity exists. And I
Yeah.
call that heresy. But also, yes, that's true. And I will make videos on that as well. I hope you enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna get into like what happens before Warhammer 40k, like all the stuff before humans. And I'm gonna dive into Warhammer, the regular Warhammer, that's like the medieval Warhammer. Definitely gonna check that out, because I don't know nothing about that, and that shit sounds really cool too. Like, comment, and subscribe. Ring the bell for all notifications if you want to see some more deep dives into some lore. You're gonna do all those things. Leave down in the comments what other deep dives I could go down, or like suggest some videos or something, man. That'd be awesome. See you in the next one.